Hi, welcome to YTV and this week's segment of Everybody Has a Story. For our final interview of the academic year, we are very lucky to be joined by Yale University President Richard Levin. President Levin, on June 30th, will be stepping down after a 20-year tenure, one of the longest-serving presidents in Yale's history. President Levin, thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
So, 20 years. What is going to be going through your mind on June 30th?
Good question. I'm going to be, on June 30th, I'll be in the Alps hiking, so I'm very pleased to be clearing my head. It'll be, sort of erase all the memories and get on with the next stage.
High altitude level.
Exactly, right.
Now, back in 2008, Thomas Kaplan wrote a piece for the Yale Daily News, and it was entitled, "Levin at 15 Years, Yale's Greatest." When you were inaugurated, the university was in a state of despair and disrepair, and you've obviously brought the university a long way and left it better than you found it. But how do you think you stack up in terms of past Yale presidents? Where do you place yourself in Yale's history?
Let's let the historians do that. That's not for me. I'm very satisfied with the accomplishments of the last 20 years. I think we're a stronger institution, and I feel really good about that.
Now, when you were selected, you had been the dean of the graduate school for less than a year before you were selected by the Yale Corporation. Clearly, you weren't the most experienced candidate in terms of number of years. What do you think they saw in you?
Well, I've been chair of the economics department for 5 years. I've been active in university committees and in all kinds of other service, really from the beginning of my term as an assistant professor. So I had a track record. I knew a lot of faculty. I had, I think, aptitude for the job. I did have ideas about what needed to be done at Yale. I mean, I had a pretty clear program from day one about the things that were most important to accomplish. So I guess they just sort of saw all of those attributes. I was an economist. I had outside experience. I didn't have leadership experience at the administrative level in Yale, but I'd done a lot of consulting to companies and government agencies, and so I had more worldly experience than a lot of faculty.
Now, there's a famous quote, I think attributed to Henry Kissinger, that says, "University politics are vicious precisely because the stakes are so small." Now, setting aside the latter part of that quote, because I think you would say the stakes are a little bigger than that, how would you evaluate his characterization? After 20 years of being university president, right, how would you evaluate university politics?
There are many claimants to that quote, by the way.
Yes,
Kissinger is the right one. But I actually don't think it's true that university politics are so vicious. I think that I think that what's different in the university is that there is a common core of passionate conviction throughout the place, particularly the faculty, that a belief in the fundamentals of the enterprise. There's shared values among faculty. They want excellence in teaching and excellence in research, and I think there's in the real world of politics, the outside world of politics, I think there's much more disagreement about ultimate goals. So I don't think it's true. I think it's easier to be successful in the university environment than in Washington.
Now, there was, earlier this year, there was quite a bit of backlash over the Presidential Search Committee, because there were no students on the committee, and the same kind of dynamic happened with the grading committee. Once again, no students, and a lot of students felt that their voice wasn't heard. What is the role of students in university government? And are these kinds of processes with alcohol policy, grading, presidential search, have they sent a message to the Yale community that the Yale administration doesn't value student opinion?
If so, it's unfortunate. I think I would really divide those two cases. I actually agreed with the Yale Corporation that, and I think students don't really understand this, that for selecting a leader for the institution as a whole really takes people with a broad, deep knowledge of the history and fundamentals of the institution. And so the fact that it's trustees who are fiduciaries and a few long-serving, outstanding faculty members seems to be the right composition for the search committee for the president. And that was what it was when I was chosen, and I think it worked out fine. Frankly, the grading committee was the Yale College matter. I wasn't aware there were no students on the committee. I was actually surprised to learn that, because, and I think everyone in the end realizes that was a mistake, because students are on some of the key committees in Yale College of Course of Study and Teaching and Learning committees. We have student representation as in the normal course of business. So in creating this ad hoc committee on grading, I just think it was an oversight probably that students weren't there. It obviously makes sense to have students involved. So.
Now let's switch to Yale-NUS, which is supposed to start this year in a curricular report which just released.
Yep.
I want to read a quote from your inaugural address in 1993. Quote, "As scholars and teachers, we live by values intended to permit the full flowering of the human spirit," end quote. Are the political free speech restrictions in Singapore and consequently running a university there at odds with the Yale's values if they don't promote the full flowering of the human spirit?
I think we're going to demonstrate in Singapore what it means to permit the full flowering of the human spirit. I mean, we have, marching in a protest line is not the only way for the human spirit to flower, and I think the intellectual ambition of this new college, the curricular ambition, the kind of pedagogy that's going to be undertaken is going to be extraordinarily valuable for the students there, and it's going to become a model for Asia, and frankly I hope that we'll learn some things there that come back and benefit Yale College in New Haven. So I actually believe this is an experiment that's going to prove to be extremely successful over time, and it will, if we look back in 20 or 50 years, we're going to say this is one of the most important things that Yale has done in recent years.
Now, New Haven Mayor John DeStefano will also be stepping down after 20 years. And one of your biggest priorities when you came into office was repairing the relations between Yale and New Haven. Now, everybody knows, you've said in the past, that Mayor DeStefano has a bit of a fiery personality. How did you handle that coming in? You've been described as much calmer. How did that dynamic work, and were there any moments of serious contention?
Sure, there were. There have been. But we, for one thing, John DeStefano, while he sometimes can be a little volatile, is a person with a fundamental commitment to the welfare of the city. And I mean, he is a true public servant, and he truly cares about the interests of his community. And so when, even when there were minor blow-ups, he would always come around to recognize that the common interests of the university and the city are fundamentally joined, and that we needed to reach answers, and we needed to find solutions to the problems we were confronting together. So, in the end, it wasn't really that hard. He had the right values and the right vision, and as a pragmatist, very much recognized the commonality of interests that were at play.
Do you have any thoughts on his replacement? Would you like to see Yale alumnus in there?
I know a lot of the candidates, and so I'm certainly not going to take sides here. And I think there's some excellent candidates.
I want to switch to athletics for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, we're all still riding on the high of our national hockey championship.
Fabulous, yeah.
But despite that bright spot, Yale athletics, I think, for a lot of students, has certainly left something to be desired. One student actually summed up his frustration to me asking a simple question: why can't Yale be like Stanford? So, as a Stanford alumnus, as someone who was dedicated to revamping athletic facilities at Yale when you came in, what is the biggest obstacle to preventing Yale from being competitive in both academics and athletics?
Well, I don't think people can't really mean that seriously. Do you want to play Oregon State or Harvard? I mean, we play in the Ivy League. If all 8 Ivy League schools were to aspire to recruiting world-class athletes, world-class college athletes at Stanford's level in sports like football and basketball, Stanford would be no good. I mean, there aren't enough to go around that are academically competitive. So Stanford has an unusual niche in that it's competing in major leagues in football and basketball and baseball in ways that we aren't, and it is trying to get people that are also first-rate students. They clearly dip much lower than any of the Ivy League schools in terms of the kind of students they recruit. So they admit many people below the Ivy League floor on the academic index. So, you know, we could all go that way, but why would we really want to? And I think it would change the character of these places, and I don't think we, you know, if Stanford didn't have a near monopoly on this elite student, elite athlete category, I think that they wouldn't be such a winner either.
Now, many people from the Yale community have expressed concern about what they see in recent years as the corporatization of Yale. Would you agree with that characterization that Yale has become more like Yale Inc. than Yale University?
You know, I think it's a mischaracterization. All of major universities today are essentially fundamentally large enterprises with, you know, there is a business side that has to sustain, you know, the services for people, just the financial and accounting services, the IT services, the human resource management has to be done in some systematic way at institutions like these. We're no longer, you know, a collection of Oxford dons, you know, self-governing units of 20. That isn't what we are. So that there inevitably has to be some introduction of kind of business efficiency on the, particularly on the staff and side of the institution. You know, I think that this remains, relative to many other universities, a very intimate place. Actually, I mean, I don't think there are many institutions of Yale's size where any faculty member who calls up Regina Starolis in my office and asks for an appointment with the president would get it. I mean, that happens here. I mean, faculty. I know the faculty. The faculty know the provost. They know. I mean, it's actually not like a large corporate organization where there are so many layers that people don't know each other.
Well, that actually leads right into my next question. There has been some criticism that there hasn't been a lot of visibility of the administration on campus. That a lot of students may graduate without ever meeting you. What do you think the proper level of visibility is for the president, for the provost, for the dean?
Well, the dean, I sort of think the dean of Yale College is the person who needs to be out and about most with the undergraduates, and the deans of the various professional schools, the same for them. You know, our undergraduates are the world's best. They're absolutely fantastic. I love interacting with undergraduates, but the truth is they're only half the population of students in this university, although very few of them would believe it. It's not really feasible to get to know, you know, 11,000 students when I'm trying to run the whole great big place. So, you know, I have various student groups come to events. I go to football games. I go to hockey games. I go to student performances. But I can't, you know, it's a limitation on what the president can do in these dimensions. Now,
in an interview about 3 weeks ago, you said that there was very little, if anything, that you and Peter Salovey disagree on or have disagreed on in the past. How is President Salovey going to distinguish himself from President Levin?
You ought to ask that to President Salovey. I mean, I think he will need to make some choices that, you know, that set some goals that are uniquely his, and I'm sure he will.
Now, you were considered as a possible choice to head President Obama's National Economic Council 2 years ago, and your name came up again as a possible choice for the Secretary of Treasury position, which was eventually given to Jack Lew. If you're offered a government post in the future, will you take it?
I might. I might.
All right.
Right.
Now, you've invested a lot of time and resources in improving the sciences at Yale. What's the ultimate goal here? Where do you want to see Yale science in 10 years?
Well, I think we've actually gotten a long distance toward where I'd like to be, where I'd like Yale to be. I think in the life sciences today, we really are one of the very best places in the country. I think we're getting there in chemistry. I think we're very close to top 5 status in chemistry. I think the remaining areas that need to move up are the physical sciences and engineering. And, you know, over time, as the resource constraints become a little less tight, as they've been since the crash in 2008, I think that'd be an important area to emphasize. I think we have some outstanding people in the physical sciences and engineering, but we don't have the across-the-board strength that we have in the life sciences now. And so that would be the natural next place to emphasize.
Is there any major initiative you wanted to explore but just never got the opportunity to?
Well, I think if you say big themes, I'd say no. I think I tried to hit the big things I thought were most important. There's lots of incomplete work. I mean, the recession really did constrain the ability to, advance in a number of areas. We didn't get to complete the arts plan and do the drama school facility. We need to keep the Science Hill buildings moving and to build the biology building, and which then unlocks the possibility of renovating the physical sciences buildings and so forth. So there are a lot of things got stalled, the new colleges, but I don't think, in terms of major themes, I don't feel we missed any opportunities. I do think that the next 10 years is going to be a period where we really have to decide what is going to be Yale's distinctive niche in online education and figure out a strategy that works best for us. Right now it's kind of a little bit of a lemmings phenomenon as people rush off and join these various consortia, and I don't think there's been a really thoughtful solution yet to what a really strong world-class university should be doing in this space. I mean, it's obvious that there's going to be lots of mass education done through the online education, and it's not obvious that that's our niche. So I think we need to think about what that is.
Well, that actually leads right into my next question, which is 2023. Will a Yale student be able to receive a bachelor's degree from online classes?
Possibly. Certainly some professional degrees. I think that's more likely to happen sooner, that the nursing school, public health school, maybe the forestry school will start to offer online master's degrees. I think that's not so far away, and that would be a natural extension of those three schools' missions, which are global, and that could be really interesting. Bachelor's degree, if we did, I would hope it would be distinguishable from a Yale College degree, because without the component of the living and learning together and the residential education and all the deep involvement of students in extracurriculars, I mean, what makes for a Yale education is a lot more than what happens in the classroom. You all know that. And that is the hard part to replicate. Even if the technology can replicate the classroom experience pretty well now, it can't replicate the whole.
Well, I want to end with some fun questions. This is just a rapid fire round of 9 questions. So, right. Brief answers. I'm just going to go boom, boom, boom. First, best pizza in New Haven?
Pepe's.
Okay. Second, strongest relationship you've had with another college president?
Gerhard Casper at Stanford.
Cabinet post or elected office? If you had a choice.
Cabinet post.
Okay. Toads or box?
Neither one. I'm too old for that.
Best residential college?
Oh, are you kidding? I wouldn't answer that question.
We'll go with Branford. Most beautiful building on campus?
Oh, I think the Sterling Library, to me, is still the peak.
Ugliest building on campus?
There's a number of contenders. Probably a building for which we are responsible in my time, the Chemical Safety Building on Science Hill.
Have you ever had a Wenzel?
No.
No? Okay. We'll get you one.
Maybe I've had one and don't know it.
Okay. Last question. One perk of being president you will miss the most?
There's so many that are fun. I think being able to pick out art for the president's house, that's been really fun. Living among, all these great works and these things from our museum.
President Levin, congratulations on 20 years, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us this whole semester. We'll see you back next fall for more interviews with Yale's most interesting campus figures. For YTV, I'm Cody Pomeranz, and this has been another segment of Everybody Has a Story. Back to you in the studio.